Hello everybody and welcome to another Top 10 edition of Magic Mics, proudly sponsored by our Patreon supporters and CoolStuffInc.com. You can find cool stuff in stock every day, and our co-sponsor CardHoarder.com, offering the best inventory prices and delivery of cards for Magic Online. I am Evan Irwin, and we get started each week by saying hello to my two co-hosts, Aaron Campbell.
Happy holidays, everyone.
Ruben Bressler.
Hey, Happy New Year. Hindsight's about to be 2020.
Oh, yeah, that joke.
I'm
Good.
so ready.
I can't believe no one made an album and called it Hindsight.
I'm sure someone has. I'm not the first one, but...
You know someone on OnlyFans is called Hindsight.
Ooh, I like that. Ooh, Hindsight.
This is not the pre-show. Let's keep moving. We also get started with our choice of the top comment from last week in a segment we call Honorable Mention, where Ruben will tell us who was the most eloquent and letting us know what card we did not choose as one of our top 10 Ron Spencer cards. Ruben?
Yeah, I gotta
get yourself ready.
Gotta get the gullet ready.
Here we
That's
go.
right. Now, this is going to be more of a musical episode, apparently, than I was planning on originally. I've got the AC/DC Back in Black shirt for the Black Humans episode.
Nice.
And our winner is Edward Stewart, who writes... I've got a grenade for ya.
Yeah, yeah.
The goblin jumps out of frame at ya.
Yeah, yeah.
Chuck this goblin matron at ya.
Yeah, yeah.
As you may have guessed, my honorable mention is Goblin Grenade.
Yes. The minute I saw this in the YouTube comments, I was like, Ruben, I'm gonna send this for consideration.
That's a winner. That's a winner. That's what that is.
It's pretty terrific. This being one of the arts on Goblin Grenade from Fallen Empires, there were 3 or 4, I believe, different ones.
I think there were 4.
Yeah.
Yeah, there were 4 different ones from back in the day. For those who don't know, Goblin Grenade is 1 red for a sorcery that says, as an additional cost to cast this spell, sacrifice a goblin. And Goblin Grenade deals 5 damage to any target. And if you look real close, the spear right there has the word Mike in it. Or his friend, as I understand. Yeah. Really cool. So the image itself is great. You know, obviously there's a lot of sort of energy, power, movement in that stuff as well. Yeah. And I really enjoy it. It's one of those, doesn't need a background. It's got a character.
It's got the definition, it's got the spikes, it's got everything you want.
Mm-hmm. So congratulations to Edward. Please contact Erin on social media before she blocks you on all of them. It's only a matter of time.
It's a fun mini game. It's like a shell game. You have to figure out which one you're not blocked on.
Right. It's like
she's going to block us one day just for the laws.
It's like a tower defense game.
It's going to be
where
insane.
You're like, can we sneak through?
Thanks again to CoolStuffInc.com for sponsoring this giveaway, and stay tuned for our top 10 list this week, and maybe you can win next week's free gift certificate. Because it's time to talk about mono black humans. Thankfully, the word mono exists, which lets us have...
for the YouTube algorithm. Yeah, but it is also nice because there are a ton of humans.
Yes, so many.
We can't just do a top 10 humans episode.
I mean,
because there are 2,000 of them or something ridiculous.
But do you wanna?
No, not really.
Right.
There are 331 humans in mono black.
Right, just as the color identity black, so there's no off-color activations or whatever.
Right.
And yeah, I had a lot of fun going through the list and like, oh, I remember that card, and that card's sweet, and this card is awesome. And we got some hires and sanes amongst us, so that should be pretty interesting. But let's go ahead and get started here with our number 10. Ruben, what's number 10?
My number 10 is the most expensive of the mono black humans that are available. It would be even more expensive were it not a gift card in 2012. I remember when this got printed as a gift card, and people were like, oh, thank goodness that we've got Jihao Doon, the One-Eyed, that isn't a gazillion dollars, although it's still pretty expensive. Jihao Doon, the One-Eyed, originally from Portal 3 Kingdoms, is a 3/2 legendary creature human soldier with our favorite keyword ability, horsemanship. This creature can't be blocked except by creatures with horsemanship. It's basically P3K flying. And... sacrifice Jihao Doon the One-Eyed, return target black card from your graveyard to your hand. Activate this ability only during your turn before attackers are declared. So this is a very popular EDH card in a myriad of different decks. Being able to rebuy things like Profane Command, you can, get back your Yogmoth's Will and cycle this thing, or just get back any of your things you want to get back your Damnation or whatever.
Right, and also it also has that sort of distinction of it sacrifices to do a thing, and technically you could have it go infinite, I guess, with itself in some way.
I can't recall which decks this has been in, but I've never seen this card played fairly.
Yeah, because this thing doesn't exile itself like most things that get stuff out of the graveyard. Correct. So that's very unique. But man, it's $100 or $67 for the promo. It could use a reprint. You know what I'm saying? There's another commander set coming. Let's do it.
Very good with Cryptghast and all those black mana doublers. Very good with Karik. Son of Yogmoth, who, you know, lets you pay life instead of paying mana, which is always great. So lots of cool things you can do with Jihao Doon.
Toxic Deluge, Entombs in there, you know, Necropotent stuff is always fun.
Sure.
Yeah, there's a lot of really fun stuff on EDH Rec for this card. Yeah, so that was sweet. Aaron, what's number 10?
Mono black ramp is surprisingly hard to come by in Commander. Like, you have rituals, so you can do like Dark Ritual, you know, Cabal Ritual, that sort of thing. You can play like a Leaden Mirror. You can play like Charcoal Diamond or the, you know, the Black Medallion if you want to. But, you know, you don't really have anything like Rampant Growth. You know, you don't really have anything, you don't really have Dorks to speak of. You know, there's a couple of odd ones out there where you can like pay a life and get a colorless, or you can, you know, turn a colorless into a black, that sort of thing. But you have to get creative when it comes to mono black ramp. And this is a card that I've really come to enjoy in EDH. It's also one of my boyfriend's favorites. I had to bring it up. My number 10 is Bogwitch. So Bogwitch is 2 colorless and a black. It was originally printed in Mercadian Masks. It is a creature human spell shaper with 1 power and 1 toughness. You can pay 1 black, tap, and discard a card from your hand to basically get a Dark Ritual. So add 3 black to your mana pool. So this is repeatable ramp in black. You're also playing black, so discarding a hand is probably not a downside. You know, it's fine if you're playing any sort of Reanimator shells, or if you have a way to get that card back, or if you have any madness going on. It's also a really great way to get madness online. But yeah, this card has become a really, really big favorite of mine, and I just love what it does.
Yeah, with stuff like Isareth the Awakener is really great, putting a card into your graveyard to bring it right back, which is awesome. Yeah, this was the whole Spell Shaper thing, where if you just discard a card, it will give you this magical spell every single turn.
Every card in your hand into that spell.
Which is
Spell Shapers are great. I want Spell Shapers to come back. If we ever go back to Mercadia, I doubt we will, but if we ever go back to Mercadia, that's what I want.
Spell Shapers are great, though. I really enjoyed the idea of it, but like at this point, to have to discard a card for like an effect,
for a
it better be
effect?
Yeah, it better be really good.
I mean, if you put listen, you can get some folks on board with a Bolt Spell Shaper, maybe an Entomb Spell Shaper. I mean, there's a bunch of spells out there that you can read, like let's get a Doomsday spell. No, I'm kidding. Don't do a Doomsday Spell Shaper.
Stop listening.
Yeah, really.
There are lots of ways to make Spell Shapers work again. I'm on board with getting Spell Shapers back.
I'm on board with the idea of 1/1s. Price them however you want, you know, and then, but they can do an incredibly awesome thing if you just give them a turn and give them a card. I would be okay with that. I think that'd be fun. All right, here. So for my number 10, this is easily the newest card that is on my list, and it's not even close. This card is bananas. I can't properly explain to you what an unbelievable beating this card is. I've been playing a lot of Arena Cube because Arena Cube has been fun, and God bless Jumpstart, because Jumpstart added not only a whole bunch of old cards but a whole bunch of new cards. And mother of God, Witch of the Moors is freaking insane. This card is bananas. If they untap with it, you're just done. It's over. Witch of the Moors is 2 black, 3 generic mana for a 4/4 rare human warlock. Hey, it's a warlock with Death Touch because it needed it. At the beginning of your end step, if you gained life this turn at all, each opponent, every single one, sacks a creature, and you return up to 1 target creature card from your graveyard to your hand. This card is freaking absurd. I can't, I mean, I lost to it many, many times, and it pissed me off.
This card's ridiculous.
The art.
All you have to do is gain 1 life.
Yes.
Yeah. I was attracted to it because of the art. You know, I love this multi-art. Shout out to Caio Montero. I probably slaughtered your name. I'm sorry. But, you know, you have this sort of we saw this when Eldraine came out. There was the Tempting Witch that had like the apple and had the cowl and everything. Well, this one's much more twisted. This one has more arms. I think it even has like a mandible almost where the legs should be. Like this art is wonderful and evocative. And the card is in Jumpstart, which was going for, it's down to $5 now, which is much more approachable. But yeah, the card is brilliant and the art is wild.
The card is just a beating.
This is the artist mostly of Shark Typhoon fame, but the Baba Yaga kind of callback, the like crazy warlock energy. like, this is not it feels just, it's not a wizard. Like,
right.
You can tell that this is a different kind of magic. There's a different flavor happening.
Very nice. All right, let's move here to number 9. Aaron, what you got?
My number 9 is a card that you would think this had been done before. Like, if you look at the effect, and it's not that game breaking, but honestly, if you go back and look, and I could be wrong here, but when I have tried to find additional versions of this card or things that do what this card does, I surprisingly can't find any. And so I really appreciate how unique this card is. It was a powerhouse in Standard in the aristocrat style strategies. And now it's seeing new life in EDH. And so if you are playing EDH and you're doing anything with aristocrats and you're in black, you absolutely want this card because this card can just help you bury your opponents in card advantage. My number 9 is Grimharus specs. So Grimharus specs is 2 colorless and a black. It was originally printed in Khans of Tarkir. A human wizard with 3 power and 2 toughness and morph. You can morph it for 1 black, and you can also just you may cast it face down as a 2/2 for 3 colors. You can flip it for 1 black. Whenever another non-token creature you control dies, you draw a card. That's it. That's the tweet. And so if you're doing any sort of aristocrat style stuff, this card will just bury your opponents. Like, it just runs away with the games. And it's just fine on its own. A 3/2 for 3, sure. But if you really go back and look, there's just not many cards that do this. Like, honestly, like, if you try to look for this sort of effect, not very many at this rate.
It's nice that they had Seb McKinnon do both the, base set version and the promo version.
Yes, and they're both brilliant.
Yeah, and you can now get the Ugin's Fate version a lot cheaper because it's on the list, which is sweet too. So for about $5 instead of 20. Right. This card is super awesome in what it does, in that you're like, what just draws me a card when things die? Like, you'd be surprised it's sometimes hard to find those cards.
It's tough. I mean, we live in a world with Midnight Reaper these days, but usually it's fewer and further between. And so decks like the Abzan Rally decks really leaned heavily on the Grimharus specs. The morph of 1 black was designed so that you could get your opponent when they cast a Wrath against you, and you could just refill up your hand, sort of out of nowhere. And it's a great card.
And Midnight Reaper can kill you. Like, that's not a May ability, if I understand it. So this is a lot safer, and it's
In your She-Ray decks.
We need more Haruspexy
in
Magic. I think we want more of that entrails prediction and that kind of magic that makes my fingers do this.
And the flavor text is so kitschy. Like the one that says, we all want to know what's going on in someone else's head. I just go in and look.
Just open it up and get on in there. Just take a look around.
Or the other one is like, something about being gutless, where it's like your enemies may be cowardly, but one should never call them gutless.
Wow.
That dark humor.
Ruben, what's your number 9?
My number 9 is one of my hires on somebody else's list.
Fair enough. Well, my number 9 is not higher on someone else's list, but it is a fantastic card. It's also one of those cards that has only been printed once, and you go, why do you recognize how popular this card is? Like, there's a reason that it's a freaking common, and it's $4 because they only made Shadowborn Apostle one time.
Oh, yes.
One time in Magic 2014. This is a common human cleric for 1 black mana. It's a 1/1. A deck can have any number of cards named Shadowborn Apostle. That's a very unique phrase. We don't see it on a ton of cards, and every single one that we do are always usually worth a ton. Because you don't need 4.
You need 40 of them.
You need 40. That's right. Where are you going to find them? Like, it's ridiculous. Well, a deck can have any number of them. For a black, you can sacrifice 6 creatures named Shadowborn Apostle, search your library for a demon creature card, and put it onto the battlefield and shuffle your library.
So this card did absolutely nothing in Standard. However, it has found new life in EDH where, and it's always broken. Like, you can play it with Athreos and then just whoop, 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 and then no one's going to pay 3 life per Shadowborn. So you're probably just going to get your Shadowborns back. And so it turns into this demon toolkit deck. I remember when I first decided that I wanted to build She-Ray, a very popular version of She-Ray is just She-Ray, Shadowborns, and demons, because you sacrifice everything and then She-Ray's whoop, 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 and then you're right back where you started. I think the Athreos version even has like a storm version. It's like Orzhov Storm. And it's because of this. Like, it's ridiculous.
Yeah, there's a really great episode of the Command Zone where Josh just goes off with Edgewalker and Shadowborn Apostle. Edgewalker making Shadowborn Apostle cost 0.
Yeah.
Because it reduces the cost by a black mana. This card is $4, and the Shadowborn demon that it's supposed to go get is $1.
Yeah. And it's just so flavorful. You know, we've seen that trope so many times of the clerics that either sacrifice people for demons or even sacrifice themselves. And so this is just a perfect way to encapsulate that.
Yeah, the idea that you can have any number of a card in your deck is super duper rare.
It's always, I mean, Relentless Rats, Persistent Petitioners, this card, Rat Colony. I mean, they're all, you need 1 million of them if you want to play a commander deck with them. So
it's true.
Not surprising.
Usually leads to nothing good.
Right.
Foolishness is inbound, we assure you. Let's move on here to number 8. Aaron, what's number 8?
I don't play a lot of standard, but one of my favorite standards ever was because of this card right here. I was playing the green-black rock deck in Innistrad Standard that revolved around Geralf's Messenger, Thragtusk, Desecration Demon, and this card right here. This is another one of those cards that you don't need to sell me on. Like, if you give me an EDH deck and you're like, Aaron, you gotta play with this card, I'm just gonna be like, okay, yes. I'm not going to question it. I'm just going to do it because I love this card so much. My number 8 is Disciple of Bolus. So Disciple of Bolus is 3 colorless and a black, was printed in Magic 2013. It's a human wizard with 2 power and 1 toughness. When it enters the battlefield, sacrifice another creature. You gain X life and draw X cards, where X is that creature's power. So the green-black rock deck had a lot of repeatable creatures. You know, you had Thragtusk, where even if you sacrifice it, you still get your beast token. You can sacrifice Geralf's Messenger, and then, you know, you get your Undying trigger and you get what you want out of this. If you're playing Desecration Demon and your opponent does have a way to keep it at bay, fine. You just break it, gain a bunch of life, draw some cards, and find some other things that you can beat him to death with. And so this card did so much for so little effort and just really made that deck special for me. And I just love it so much.
I love the numbers on this card. Everything feels right. It's exciting, but it's not too exciting.
Right.
No. It's good, but it's not too good.
It always felt really good when you were able to get like a Thragtusk.
Yeah. Draw 5, make a 3/3 token.
5.
There you go. Good times. All right. Ruben, what's number 8?
My number 8 is another card that has only been printed once in Commander 2013. They're $17 a piece these days. They should probably put this somewhere else pretty soon. It also features the token that has not been printed, and Mike Linneman is constantly asking for the 1/1 Black Snake creature token that, by the way, the playtest card from the Grand Prix, whatever those were, the Mystery
cards.
Booster Grand Prix, Pick Your Poison, also makes Black Snake creature tokens with Death Touch.
Oh my god.
My number 8 is Ophiomancer.
Yeah, it is.
Ophiomancer is 2 colorless and a black for a 2/2 human shaman. At the beginning of each upkeep, if you control no snakes, create a 1/1 black snake creature token with Death Touch. Another great Aristocrats card, because every turn you're like, all right, make a 1/1. Sack it to my Viscera Seer and Scry. Next upkeep, make a 1/1.
Oh my
Do
God.
another thing. I've got these Blood Artists, I've got these Cruel Celebrants, I've got
every single upkeep.
all these things, and all I want is a 1/1 black snake creature. And by the way, Death Touch ain't nothing to sneeze at. So if you're coming in with like one of your Titans or, you know, whatever, what have you.
You can make creatures fight each other like it's
right,
Death Touch.
exactly. I got a 1/1 and I'm getting another one on my upkeep. So it's great.
Yeah, this card is sweet.
Oh, sorry. I've had people bring this in against me in Vintage playing Dredge because I get rid of all my bridges. Like, and I have no real way to like deal with it. Like, it's just every turn. Like, why?
Yeah.
Sure. $17. Wizards, what is happening?
Oh, it was higher. It's been higher than that. This is one of those cards that I'm always checking up on just to see if like maybe is it affordable, maybe nope. Just
pretty stupid that this hasn't been reprinted. I mean, it's
asking for it.
I imagine this is asking for it. This is going to be like the headliner for Commander Collection Black or whatever.
Yeah, they're definitely going to have it. And the token is going to be a big deal. Who makes the token?
It's going to be a big deal.
It's going to be great. But yeah, Wizards has this in their back pocket, and I like it.
I also love the art that if you look at her arms, she's got snakes on her arm tattoos.
Yes.
That look like what she's making. And it's very flavorful and very cool.
Oh, wow. That is really cool. I didn't notice that. All right. So for my number 8 here, this is a Scourge of the Pauper format. Wizards is like, we really, I guess, are totally okay with the Monarch ability. The Monarch ability is arguably busted. arguably not that great, and arguably way too good on a card like Thorn of the Black Rose, as they originally gave us in Conspiracy Take the Crown. For a black and 3 generic mana, it's a 1/3 common human assassin with Death Touch, and when it enters the battlefield, you become the Monarch. That's just what you do. And it's great.
This card is basically, previous to Fall from Favor, this was the best way to,
be the
cheapest
Monarch.
way.
Yeah, the cheapest way to be the Monarch.
To be the Monarch in Pauper.
Yeah.
Right.
It's an incredibly powerful card, and 3 toughness is nothing to sneeze at.
Yeah. And repeatable effect. Again, this is great in a Shirei deck. If you are playing, 1 power, means you can keep getting the Monarch back even after you lose it. This also sees play in the Torex decks, so Tortured Existence, because you can just sort of get it back for very cheap, and, is a great roadblock. And I remember there was a time there where there was a discrepancy between, the Magic Online prices and the paper prices, where, like, you could get this in paper for, like, 10 cents, but if you went on Magic Online, it was like $5.
Yep.
It was just so random.
I mean, now we have the Fall from Favor format or whatever, which is absolutely ridiculous. And like, to have the threshold at 4 mana, like, felt okay, but like 3 mana,
and putting it in black and white was fine also. But 3 mana in blue on a removal spell, it's a little much.
I can't. It's fine. Whatever. Let's move on here to number 7. Aaron, what you got?
So my number 7 is just a really interesting card, a really neat take on board wipe, something we haven't seen before, and also creates really interesting moments on stream. I've seen so many awesome clips of people playing this card on Arena and just seeing the fallout. I think there might even be a clip of me doing this during one of our early access events. I just got to get this card to do its thing, and I just laughed and laughed. It just makes you feel something, which is great. My number 7 is Massacre Girl. So Massacre Girl is 3 colorless and 2 black, legendary creature, human assassin with 4 power and 4 toughness. She has menace. When Massacre Girl enters the battlefield, each other creature gets -1/-1 until end of turn. So it creates these waves, if you will. And then whenever a creature dies this turn, each creature other than Massacre Girl gets -1/-1 until end of turn. So it checks. It leads to this really neat check that happens of -1/-1. What died from this? Okay.
Yep.
How many things died from this? Okay. Again. And the graphics in Arena look really cool. I believe it's just like these red X's that just like cha-ching, dead, cha-ching, and it just goes. And then afterwards you have a 4/4 with menace that people need to deal with. And so, it really relies on having a certain toughness. You want to make sure that you can chain everything properly, but I love the way this works. I love the flavor of it. I love the feel, the outcome. It's just a fun card and affordable. If you're into budget EDH, you can get it for less than $0.25. Like, get it.
It's
and
good.
she's a Rakdos legendary. People made fun of the name Massacre Girl, but I don't think anybody's making fun of her anymore.
Hey.
She won Mythic Championship 7 in Long Beach. Peter Glukowski took down a whole bunch of Simic Flash decks, thanks in large part to 2 copies of Massacre Girl and an extra one in the sideboard to be able to take care of all those stupid blue and green creatures on the other side of the boards.
Very nice. Yeah, this card does well against any sort of token, swarm strategy.
Yeah.
This was an absolute blowout in limited. Like, this card was just a monster that you could wipe their entire board, have yours either live or just have a 4/4 menace left over, and I'm okay with that. Card was great. I didn't like the name, I won't lie, but it's fine. Everyone's just like, it's already in the novel or story or whatever. I'm like, I don't care. All right, it's fine.
I mean, we've got Judith the Scourge Diva. Like just let us have something, man.
It's whatever. It's fine. Ruben, what you got for number 7?
My number 7 is, let me look at my list, higher on somebody else's list.
Oh, such suspense we gave you there. Well, my number 7 is old school. All right, this is old school. There used to be a time, you bunch of spoiled Magic players, where like you would get really excited about cards that didn't have 7 abilities, that didn't create the thing to turn on the thing to do the stuff, and oh yeah, it reanimates itself because reasons. Like, back in the day, you could do really cool, powerful things with just a single sentence, and I absolutely loved it. I like, when I first read this card, I was like, oh my god, how is this like not a tournament, monster all-star like you do when you're like sort of learning Magic and whatnot. And you go, look, the card Royal Assassin is good.
Yeah.
It's a very good card, all right? It's not the best card in Magic, but it was a fine card at doing what it does. Mainly it dies a lot, but that's okay. But I liked what it did as for new players. I think they would love this thing. We haven't seen this thing in print since 2012, Magic 2012. Yeah. Royal Assassin is 2 black and a generic mana for a 1/1 rare human assassin, and it says tap : destroy target tapped creature.
I remember, as a kid, you know, I remember the first time I saw this card and thinking it was just the coolest thing in the world. You know, just it seemed so powerful. You know, we obviously had no idea about tournament Magic. We were just playing in our parents' basements. And, you know, I remember just this card. I remember the art, you know, the sort of what appears to be a disfigured person kind of waiting in the alley. You see the person celebrating in the pub there. You see the flavor text. This is a card that just takes me back. And I was so happy to see it reprinted like a bajillion times.
Yeah. I mean, you look at the history of the game and you think Shivan Dragon, Llanowar Elves, Sarah Angel, Sengir Vampire, Royal Assassin's up there. Yeah. Royal Assassin's probably one of the, 10 or 15 cards I think of first. It's also won Worlds in 1995 in the hands of Alexander Blumke. And occasionally we'll see sideboard play in Legacy. Because it's a really good way to take care of small creatures that you don't have. Like, if you don't have a ton of removal, if you have like those weird bug mirror matches where the only removal you have is Abrupt Decay or like Maelstrom Pulse, a Royal Assassin can really mess up your plans pretty royally.
Royally, you say?
That's right.
Aha. Yeah, but all the way from Alpha, like this card was cool back in the day. There was just a mystique about it that like was tangible. Like when I learned how to play Magic and I started trading cards and stuff, like no one would trade the Royal Assassin. Everyone wanted to play it in their deck or whatever. Like this was big deal back in the casual days.
And we've seen this type of effect before. Isn't there a card called Assassinate that's like this effect?
Destroy a target tapped creature?
Yeah, like so this template has become a thing of destroying a tapped creature, which speaks to how iconic the card is.
Absolutely. All right, let's move on here to number 6. Aaron, what you got?
My number 6 is the only higher on my list.
The one and only.
And it's worth it.
What's your number 6?
My number 6 has a total combined power and toughness of 6, which is not why I put it here. It's just a very good card, and when Modern Horizons came out, we looked at all of the callbacks and the great creatures characters that they given creatures, and we were like, oh man, they finally gave us Urza, they finally gave us this and this and this, and people looked at Yogmoth, Thran Physician.
Yeah.
And they were like, oh boy, that's a lot of words. Yogmoth Thran Physician is 2 colorless black for a legendary creature, human cleric, with protection from humans. Pay 1 life, sacrifice a creature, put a -1/-1 counter on up to 1 target creature and draw a card. Pay black, and discard a card to proliferate. God. That is a whole bunch of stuff that are on those cards. It won occasional tournaments. There's like a black-green creature toolbox deck with things like Young Wolf and Strangleroot Geist.
Oh, yeah.
That takes advantage of Yawgmoth to be able to sort of, you want to Eldritch Evolution into your Yawgmoth and then just go to town. It's a really powerful card, and we'll see if it ever, Tom Ross has been trying to make fetch happen. We'll see if it ever actually does. Yeah.
True. Jerry Thompson famously did a cosplay of this, and it was everything.
Yeah, it was amazing. Look that up if you haven't seen it. And Tom Ross, as I understand it, actually worked on Modern Horizons, so I'm not that surprised he's trying to make it really work. The card's great, though. Like, we finally get to see Yawgmoth after all these years.
Doesn't disappoint. Sometimes even sees a bit of legacy play as well. But I love this. I love cards like this that are sort of niche, where, yes, it's a mythic. You're not going to jam it and everything, but in the right deck, it's going to do what it does very, very well. And even in EDH, this is a card that can just run away with games if you're not careful.
Free sack outlet? I mean, free. You pay a life. Who cares?
It's free.
It's free. If you have a Blood Artist in play, it's gravy. The card's insane. Yeah,
this was one of those things where, like, we kept wanting to see a Yawgmoth card, and Wizards for years, they were just like, he's too powerful. We can't make a version of it. And finally someone said, well, what if we just did the prequel version? What if we did it before he was completed and all this other stuff? And like, yeah, we can do that. And here we got it. And it's awesome. So I really like that.
I do like that he has protection from himself also.
That's really cool. Speaking of awesome human magic cards that are legends and do all sorts of really cool and sometimes really cruel things, I guess is a way to put it. This card is a beating. Wizards reprinted it one time in Eternal Masters. I don't know for what. There wasn't any demand for it, but hey, it's there, sure. Because if you're ready for the whole table to be mad at you, I think you play Braids Cabal Minion as your commander and go from there. Because it's 2 black, 2 generic mana for a 2/2 rare legendary human minion. And at the beginning of each player's upkeep, that player sacrifices an artifact, creature, or land.
This is Stacks, yeah.
Yeah, this is the Stacks commander. This card's banned in Commander.
Oh God, it is.
not terribly surprising.
Well, I think to be clear, she's banned as the commander. I think you can have her like in your deck, but she can't be at the helm.
Can be, yes. I see. It's also a beating in cube for what it's worth. Like, this card is really sweet if you can work around it.
Also, almost won a Pro Tour. Lost to the Blue-Green Madness deck. Did Olivier Ruel with the mono-black control deck that Cabal Coffers powered crazy as many swamps as you could possibly get deck.
Yeah, and if you want to freak out, see how expensive Cabal Coffers is right now. It's stupid.
I would really not.
I remember I paid $20 for it, and I bitched and moaned the whole way. I was like, "This is highway robbery," and now it's like $80.
So stupid.
70,
but this card is iconic. You look at this character, you look at the face, you will never forget that face. And the flavor text, of course, which is so Braids, that dark humor of home is where you can find a decent graveyard and strangers disappear without questions. Like, oh my God, it's so good.
Iconic enough that Braids Conjurer Adept got printed in Planar Chaos as the sort of alternate reality version.
And affordable, again, budget Magic, less than 50 cents for your commander deck. Get some.
Yeah, I'll take it. And the idea that you saw sort of like a younger, not insane version of her in Planar Chaos was really sweet.
And broken in different ways. This one sort of destroys, that one gives, but it gives to everybody, which can
get crazy.
Yeah.
All right, let's move on here to number 5 of the 300 plus humans, of all the humans we could have chosen, of all the world. Somebody, along with me, put it as our number 5.
Ruben.
That'd be me.
Nice. Ruben, tell us about number 5.
Yeah, I mean, there's what can you really say? I mean, this was kind of the reason for the season of green-black rights, Golgari Aristocrats. The 4-color rally decks really leaned heavily on this card. Collected Company decks loved this card. And the ally decks in Commander. By ally decks, what I mean is you're running General Tarzi, and the only ally usually in your deck is Zulaport Cutthroat.
Yeah, Zulaport Cutthroat is a black and generic mana for a 1/1 uncommon human rogue ally. And whenever it or another creature you control dies, each opponent loses 1 life and you gain 1 life. Aristocrats 101, right there.
Yep. Just having as many of those, whenever a thing dies, Blood Artists, Falconwrath Noble, whatever, and Bastion of Remembrance, this is just another great one. It went perfectly in those rally decks, and was just, it also had a power, which a lot of these are, typically are 0 power, or you're paying 3 mana for 1 power. This was a 1 mana 2 or 2 mana 1/1. Which is actually above rate for this effect.
Yeah. This card is in 30,000 decks
in
the EDH rec.
Each opponent is huge as well. And the more they keep printing these sort of Blood Artist impersonators, it really does get down to those details. Like Ruben said, the rate of how much are you paying? Does it have power? Does it have toughness? Is it each opponent? Is it, lose and you gain? The particulars really kind of separate the wheat from the chaff.
And 2-headed giant, each opponent loses a life and you gain a life. So that's always nice.
Each and every one.
It's like Gary was such a nightmare in 2-headed giant because you would just, and it was a common, so you would just drain.
That was dumb. I didn't like that interaction.
Very
that felt
stupid.
Ridiculous. Aaron, what's number 5?
So number 5, we're starting to get into the cards that see older formats, like I tend to pick. And if you want to do broken things, and this isn't a card that doesn't initially scream broken. Like you look at this and it looks fine until you realize that there are decks that do not play lands intentionally, and then it starts to make sense. My number 5 is Undercity Informer. So Undercity Informer is 2 colorless and a black. It was a human rogue from Gatecrash. It's only been printed once. With 2 power and 3 toughness, it says you can pay 1 colorless and sacrifice a creature, which can be Undercity Informer. Target player reveals cards from the top of their library until they reveal a land, and then you put those cards into your graveyard. So this is a very popular card in the Oops All Spells decks, which see play in Pioneer, Modern, and Legacy right now, and are experiencing a bit of a resurgence thanks to the dual-faced cards, the lands from Zendikar, because they're not technically lands.
Yeah, they're
And
not.
so you just play a bunch of these crappy lands until you get enough to either do this or Balustrade Spy.
Yep.
You flip your whole deck over, and then you either, use Narcomoebas to then dread return what you need to, or just find some way to go off. But this card is seeing a lot more play. It's almost $1 now. And so, yeah, if you ever want to just... I don't even have the courage to play this deck. This deck even scares me, but this is an important piece.
Right. How do you win? What is happening?
So in Legacy, you dump everything over, you hit your Narcomoebas, you dread return your Thassa's Oracle. That's basically that. The Pioneer version, I think, is a little bit more convoluted. So the Pioneer version thrives on Prized Amalgam, Silver Smoke Ghoul, and then Creeping Chills, I believe. Yeah. So you flip everything over, your Creeping Chills hit, you bring all your Silver Smokes back, then you bring all your Prized Amalgams back, and you effectively need to buy yourself a turn, which I think is where World Spine Worm happens. Yeah. And so you shuffle that in, that buys you a turn, and then you should have a swing to get everything.
That's crazy. Yeah. But that's old Magic when it gets really weird. And Goblins is coming back in Vintage because
why not? Yeah,
it's nuts.
This card also saw play in Standard in the Human Reanimator decks, just as another way to put more stuff in your graveyard with your Unburial Rights. Get your Angel of Glory's Rise in there.
I remember that.
And go to town.
I wish.
What a world. Let's move on here to number 4. Aaron, what's number 4?
So my number 4 is a card that just recently came out, but already has made a huge impact in those older formats. And I opened 2 of them during my Commander Legends boxing stream, so I'm really looking forward to getting a chance to see what this card can do for myself. My number 4 is Opposition Agent. So Opposition Agent is 2 colorless and a black. It's a human rogue from Commander Legends with Flash, 3 power, and 2 toughness. You control your opponents while they're searching their libraries. Wait, what? While an opponent is searching the library, they exile each card they find. You may play those cards for as long as they remain exiled, and you may spend mana as though it were mana of any color to cast them. This was one of the hottest cards from preview season. I remember this card came out in the middle of the night, and I remember there was just this talk of is this has to be fake? Is this real, right? And it was confirmed to be a real, legitimate card. And naturally, the older formats wanted this. Formats like Legacy and Vintage and even EDH really live and die by their tutors, whether it be a vampiric tutor, whether it be an elvish reclaimer even. There's a lot of searching that goes on in these formats, and Doomsday has been a very difficult card to fight in Legacy and Vintage, and this is just a really nice kind of screw you to decks like that, just sort of surprise.
Wow. I mean,
it's an answer to those cards that isn't Force of Negation, or can't be Force of Negation, can't be Pyroblasted,
can't be
Flusterstormed, and it's just, God, this and Hull Breacher, there's just no excuse. Why? The card could have just said, if a player would search, instead they don't. Period.
Right. Or just literally not have that paragraph at the end. If it just didn't
Same
have
with Hull Breacher. If it was if a player would draw a card, instead they don't. Period. It'd be fine. These cards, man,
they go above and beyond,
it's so
and
stupid,
way beyond that, and then even further, and you're like, I can't see you anymore. They've gone so far because Opposition Agent just if it had those first 2 sentences, you control your opponents while they're searching libraries. You're like, oh, I could just fail to find, right? That makes sense. No. You get the cards, and you get to cast them for the rest of the game, whether or not this thing is dead. That's ridiculous.
It's insane.
It's amazing. So this card is fantastic.
all of the barriers you have to pass with Robber of the Rich of it has to attack, and then you have to get to your second main phase, and you have to have less cards in your hand than your opponent, and you have to do this, and you have to flip
a non-land card, otherwise you get nothing.
Opposition Agent, no, just go to town. Just take their fetch lands, take their demonic tutors, who cares?
Do whatever you want. It's free real estate. Free chicken tendies. All right, let's move in here to number 4 for Ruben. What you got?
This is the last of my 3 hires, and we haven't gotten to any. My 9, 7, and 4 are all higher, and I haven't heard them yet. So high praise, I think.
They must be good.
Fair enough. My number 4 here is a pretty fantastic Magic card. It doesn't need to be that flashy. It doesn't need to be that showy in order to be what was essentially either a tournament all-star, a limited all-star, worked in cubes. This card has been good. This ability is always good, but they never put it on a 1/2 flyer before like they did with Kitesail Freebooter.
Now we get one of my hires. This was my number 9.
Nice. Kitesail Freebooter is a black and a generic mana for a 1/2 uncommon, originally from Ixalan, reprinted in Core Set 2021. It's a human pirate that has flying, and when it enters the battlefield, target opponent reveals their hand. You choose a non-creature, non-land card from it, exile that card until Kitesail Freebooter leaves the battlefield.
This card was a game changer for the humans decks because obviously the humans decks struggled against fair cards. You know, they have Thalia and things like that and, you know, Meddling Mage, but giving them, you know, essentially a duress attached to a creature, and a creature with evasion, no less. You know, we've seen various takes on Brain Maggot and things like that, but, you know, it's small. It doesn't have any evasion. It's very easily blocked, but, you know, the humans decks can make things really, really big between Thalia's Lieutenant. And so before you know it, you have a 3/4 or a 4/5 that gets really, really big. Oh, and it happens to have that board wipe or that removal spell or whatever you're sitting on. And this card really, really changed the game. I think it also helped make humans much more viable in older formats as well. Yeah. Every once in a while, you see like this rainbow humans deck in either Legacy or Vintage. And, you know, I truly think this card was a big piece of that.
There's definitely a before humans without Freebooter and after.
Well, Freebooter and Unclaimed Territory, both uncommons in Ixalan, came out and took Modern especially by storm.
Exactly.
Like all of the follow-up Modern tournaments were Unclaimed Territory, Kitesail Freebooters, backed up with Thalia, Thalia's Lieutenant, Mantis Rider, and all the rest of the friends. Kitesail Freebooter is, and also that 2 toughness is not irrelevant. There's a bunch of 1-drop flyers in that format, and so being able to stand in front of a Terramander or a Siren Storm Tamer was not irrelevant.
Yeah.
Yep, this card was great from the moment I saw it and played it, and from then on, it just it was
and
the piece.
won the second Mythic Championship in the hands of Eli Loveman.
Yeah, you have the you know, it's like how do humans get around Wrath of God? And it's like, well, we gave you the answer to that. Congratulations.
It's like their Thought-Knot Seer. Yeah.
Let's move on here to number 3. Ruben, what's number 3?
My number 3 is an oldie but a goodie. You know, it takes a lot to get on my lists. But if you win a Pro Tour, even if that Pro Tour was way back in Worlds 1997 and Worlds 1998, you still get credit. Not only that, but if you are one of the first comes into play creatures, and more than that, the reason why come into play creatures are called 187 creatures. Oh my God. 187 is, of course, the LA cops code for a murder.
Yeah.
And the reason why it comes into play creatures are called 187 creatures is because of Necrotize. Necrotize is 2 colorless black for a 2/1 human assassin with first strike. And we'll look at the original text. When it comes into play, bury target non-artifact, non-black creature. Been reprinted a number of times from the Battle Royale box set, 8th and 9th edition, and most recently Commander 2014.
Most recently Eternal Masters, right?
Oh, really?
Yeah, it was an uncommon Eternal Masters. It references regeneration, which is a problem. It references non-artifact, non-black, which we don't really talk about or you know, separate out like they used to. It's, you know, we live in a world where like the creatures are spells in that regard. They enter the battlefield to do something cool. Yeah. This was not seen back in the day. Like, it really was play a creature, go. You played a creature, okay, go. You know, I might attack. You know, do I have a combat trick?
Spell.
Right. I might have a trick or whatever, but there was never, I play this and that happens. And then when you got Necrotize and Mana War, and those 2 straightforward abilities were just fan-freaking-tastic, and just the gameplay of it obviously excelled, and they noticed that, and we're better off for it. So, Necrotize, great. Aaron, what's number 3?
Number 3 is a card that immediately just started seeing play across multiple formats, you know. It did a reasonable Tarmogoyf impression, and it just completely took over and just did a lot. It was card advantage, it was a wall, it was a win condition, it just did so much. My number 3 is Tassiger, the Golden Fang.
This is my number 4.
Yeah.
Nice.
So Tassiger is 5 colorless and a black. You're probably not paying that. It was originally printed in Fate Reforged. Legendary creature, human shaman, 4 power and 5 toughness with Delve. Each card you exile from your graveyard while casting the spell pays for 1 colorless. So you're probably paying anywhere from like 1 black, maybe you'll pay 4 if you're feeling frisky, but you're probably not paying 6, let's be honest. And so a 4/5 for reasonably cheap is fine. You will take that. But in case that's not enough for you, you can also pay 2 colorless and any kind of Simic hybrid mana to put the top 2 cards of your library into your graveyard and then return a non-land card of an opponent's choice from your graveyard to your hand. So you can specifically delve the things that you just don't want to see. So you can leave this behind, and this is not a May ability, so the opponent does have to pick something. This was in a standard format with fetches, and obviously if you're playing in older formats, fetches are going to be there. So you had delve fodder right there. If you're playing the older formats, you have things, or you had things like Ataxian Probe, Force of Will, Force of Negation, Daze. It is not hard to get this card online, and you'll absolutely take it.
Any deck that had black mana, which, if you recall, was every deck because the mana was absurd during that block, wanted Tassiger. I mean, you played it in Abzan, you played it in Esper Dragons, you played it in Blue-Black Control, you played it in Jund, you played it in Evil Twin, you played it in Jeskai, or Dark Jeskai, or whatever that deck was called. It was a ridiculously powerful card, and still is to this day, still seeing play in the oldest formats. And most recently was doing a lot of good things in Pioneer up until Inverter got banned in the Dimir Inverter decks.
Yeah, I mean, the idea that you can pick and choose exactly what gets delved away, that they have to choose a non-land card, which is important because, 40% of your deck would be a big problem for this card if it didn't work that way. And that repeatable card advantage over and over and over again, it doesn't take long for this guy just takes over the game entirely. It's crazy. You got the removal for Tassiger? Nope. Okay, GG. Scoop them up.
It's tough to have removal for Tassiger, too.
Huge. 5 toughness. That's a butt. Which is funny, because if you look at Tassiger, where is
he? He doesn't look like he's got...
Where's that wagon?
Yeah.
Hey-o.
You gotta eat some more bananas before you get that wagon, that looks like to me.
Gonna have to get some better angles, Wizard, so we know what it's working with.
They're looking a little twinkish.
Goodness gracious.
We need to put some meat on them bones.
Yeah.
For my number 3, this one, I mean, I don't know how else to describe it other than a tournament all-star. This thing was pretty much relevant from the point that it showed up. I was not expecting this card to do essentially what it eventually did, which was win a bunch of events and, be a great deck in the metagame and whatnot. But from the time it showed up to the time it left, Priest of Forgotten Gods was a hell of a Magic card.
My number 6.
Nice. That's a black and a generic mana for a 1/2 rare human cleric, originally from Ravnica Allegiance, only from Ravnica Allegiance. Tap, sacrifice 2 other creatures, any number of target players. Each lose 2 life and sacrifice a creature. You add 2 black mana and draw a card.
Yeah, so this was a card that I had pretty much called when the spoiler season came out. I was like, this card is going to be ridiculous. And it kind of flew under the radar. If I remember correctly, it wasn't revealed until later in the spoiler season. So we had already kind of gorged ourselves on everything else. And then this card came out and kind of quietly, was good. And I used this at the pre-release to great effect. I mean, this is ramp, removal, and card draw on 1 creature for the low cost of just sacrificing your other creatures, which you're probably already doing if you're playing the red-black sacrifice deck. There's all sorts of dumb things you can do with this. I found out you can use this with Kroxa. So in response to the Kroxa, you can do dumb things.
Sacrifice the one to your own.
Good.
Amazing.
It's so good. And just this is instant speed even. This is absurd.
Yeah, they put no brakes on this card. We're could have been a 1/1. No. Could have been sorcerer speed.
This is a card that's so good that I will often first pick it in the arena queue. Because it's just that good. It's unreal. Also, the Forgotten Gods, lest we forget, that they pray to the cult of Yor, which worship the Nephilims, because we need 1 or 2 things to reference the weirdest stuff in Ravnica.
Yeah.
And the H.P. Lovecraft monsters that live in the center of the city planet are among them.
That's about all you're going to get for the Nephilims at this point. I don't think anyone's like, man,
I'll take it.
Can't wait.
I'll take it.
Sure. Let's move here to number 2. Ruben, what's your number 2?
My number 2 is a card that had an insane amount of tournament pedigree. It won a Pro Tour, obviously, Pro Tour Columbus 2004, the Ham Sandwich Pro Tour, and it is it's banned in its block. It was banned in Extended, and it led to the most mono deck metagame in the history of Magic. My number 2 is Disciple of the Vault.
Wow.
Disciple of the Vault is a 1 black mana, 1/1 human cleric. Whenever an artifact is put into a graveyard from the battlefield, you may have target opponent lose 1 life. This was a common from Mirrodin. And of course, when combined with Arcbound Ravager and all of the rest of the Affinity deck, I mean, you could win the tournament with a ham sandwich, as Osip Lebedovich said.
Yeah, it was ridiculous. I mean, we spoke about this card many times. You know, I can't put people in my shoes when I returned to Magic, at least tournament Magic, and I walked in on an F&M, and this was all the top players were playing, and everybody else was trying to stop this deck with no avail at all. And you either played it or you lost to it. There was no two ways about it most of the time.
Yeah, you still see it in Pauper from time to time. I remember my first couple forays in Pauper, you know, was against that kind of Affinity deck, and you know, me kind of doing the math and just being like, you know, oh, what's going on? And then all of a sudden, like, oh, I'm just dead.
Yeah, and when 2 of these things are out, I mean, like, it stacks and it gets really gross really quickly. Yeah. So yeah, that card is absolutely awesome. Aaron, what's your number 2?
So my number 2, I had to.
Oh boy.
If we're talking about cards that see multi-format play, and we are talking about humans, you know, I had to do it. I've been trying. I've been making a really big effort to go against the grain, and I am weak, and I'm sorry. My number 2 is Golgari Thug.
Yeah, you gotta.
I had
Listen,
to.
It's on brand.
You have to.
There's nothing wrong with that.
So Golgari Thug is 1 colorless and a black, originally printed in Ravnica City of Guilds. It is a human warrior with 1 power and 1 toughness. When Golgari Thug is put into a graveyard from play, you can put target creature card in your graveyard on top of your library, and of course it is Dredge 4. So this tends to be one of the weaker Dredge cards, but you still obviously have room for it. Sees play in Legacy and Vintage and Modern, and does have its uses. If you have a Narcomoeba in the graveyard, you can essentially form a little bit of a loop where you kill the Thug, put the Narco on top, and you get your Narcomoeba back. And if you have 2 Thugs, you can have a really, really good time. But yeah, this is just, you know, one of the cornerstones of Dredge. And Kev Walker, you know, we mentioned Kev Walker.
This art's unreal.
Yeah, the original art, you know, people forget that this is a human. You know, it does look a little zombified. And there was another version of as well, which was really cool in the Ultimate Masters, and that's fine too. But this is my boy.
There's also a Secret Lair version.
Yeah, Secret Lair looks really cool.
Yeah.
As well. But yeah, the original, I always thought it was a zombie as well, but I guess it's like, well, it's a human, but it's Golgari, so they kind of have like pustules or something.
Yeah.
Gross. But and Kev Walker, of course, does a great both menacing and gross.
That's what happens when you don't like go outside enough and don't take your vitamin D supplements.
This will be us after the pandemic's over.
We're just walking out,
covered in boils. Yeah.
That's how we roll.
I'm coming out of quarantine with Dredge 4.
I want a rusty sword like that.
Ayo.
Get tetanus.
For my number, good old tetanus, you know, like Mama used to make. For my number 2 here, this card, I don't like this card. It's not that I'm sort of saying that this is my favorite human card or whatever. This is a card that I can't deny the pedigree. I can't deny the power of it. I mean, I don't know about running the format, but there was no way you were going to run an energy deck at one point and not have Glint Sleeve Siphoner in it.
This is my last hire.
Yeah, you just didn't. And so this is your number 7. And
this is my number 7.
Nice. And this is my number 2 because, again, this card just took freaking over. I thought it was going to be too frail. I thought it was going to be another situation where, what was the one that where you...
Painseer?
Yeah, Painseer. When you untapped, you would draw cards or whatever. No. This, because it has Menace, that's a very important keyword on this because it was harder to block. You didn't just have anything out there to block it. And it just started making energy. Then it started making energy and drawing cards. And that's the thing. And Glint Sleeve Siphoner was great.
This also just saw play in decks that didn't really depend on energy.
Yeah.
It was in those Constrictor decks just as a card advantage engine that only had itself to build itself up on. It also was in like the Sultai Energy deck that Seth Manfield won Pro Tour Ixalan with. I mean, it slices, it dices, it does all the things you want.
I forgot, I didn't read the card. It's a black and a generic mana for a 2/1 rare human rogue with Menace, and whenever it enters the battlefield or attacks, you get an energy counter, and at the beginning of your upkeep, you may pay 2 energy. If you do, you draw a card and you lose a life. So it fuels itself, it's card draw, it's evasion, it did all the things, checked all the boxes.
Yeah.
As we move here to our number 1, I got a hankering that all 3 of us have the same number 1.
No!
I know I have the same number 1.
I do too.
I have a same.
Hey.
I have a same at number 1.
We all have the same. This was you're scrolling through the list and you go, that's number 1. We're not, it's not a debate. We don't talk about it. It's fine.
If your number 2 is going to be Glint Sleeve Siphoner, and we talk about Painseer, and we talk about legacies you have to live up to, there's no legacy harder to live up to in the history of Magic than a 1 colorless and 1 black creature that gives you card advantage if it isn't a Dark Confidant.
Exactly.
That's right. Dark Confidant's a black and a generic mana. Originally from Ravnica City of Guilds, this was an invitational win for Bob Maher. They kind of do those now with the Winner of the Worlds or whatever. But anyway, so 2 mana for a 2/1, now a mythic human wizard, used to be rare. At the beginning of your upkeep, reveal the top card of your library and put that card into your hand. You lose life equal to its converted mana cost.
Yeah, so this is, we talk about, this hits all of the benchmarks for us. Tournament pedigree, sees play in multiple formats, was really just one of the first. We've seen so many imitations along the way, like Evan said, where, this is the next Bob, this is the next Bob, and spoiler alert, they're never the next Bob. And, nothing can replace this card. It's much more affordable now. It's down to about $20, which is great because, this was one of the staples of Modern Jund. If you were playing Modern Jund, you did not leave the house without 4 of these. And then the metagame started to shift a little bit to where we started seeing less Dark Confidants, and some Jund decks weren't even running Bob at various points, depending on how aggressive the meta was. But, this sees play in older formats as well, and sometimes the Dark Depths decks or the Humans decks, the Maverick decks will just play this as a form of card advantage, because a lot of the broken combo decks are not bringing in spot creature removal for Bob, and so this is a way for them to, fill up their hand and get the tools they need to beat you. You have the iconic art. I mean, this card is it's just everything.
I've definitely seen Storm decks sideboard into 4 Dark Confidants.
Yeah.
Oh, sweet. I've not won a lot of events in my life. I've done well. I've top 8'd, top 4'd, made finals, blah, blah, blah. But I won an event with Dark Confidant in my deck because that guy was unstoppable in his deck.
Card is ridiculous. I remember when I was getting back into Magic, right when this was early college years. This was right before I did the Magic show for the Future Sight preview show. Episode 49 when I guest starred for Evan when he was on vacation or something.
Yeah.
And I would play my red-black aggro deck against my friend Nick Miller, now at Star City Games, and his blue Tron thing, or my friend Brian's Gruul aggro deck, and I would play I played the heck out of Dark Confidants. It is so good, and I took 8 from hit and run so many times.
Oh my god.
And I won most of those games because who cares?
I took, was it 9 or 10 off Gargadon? I did it. It happened.
Yeah. Take 10 off Gargadon. Yeah. I've seen people take 12 off of a Blightsteel. That'll happen.
It'll happen. It's okay. But because if it doesn't matter if your life's 1 or a million.
Right. 1 is not 0, as they say.
That's right.
And greatness at any cost. Most costs. Any cost would put you to 0.
Well, generally, those costs. Well, that was our top 10 mono black humans. You'll see them on the screen right now. If you're a review, take a look at my list, Aaron's list, Ruben's top 10, and we want to hear from you about what card we did not talk about, and we'll select our favorite to win a $50 gift certificate to CoolStuffInc.com. But before we go, I want to thank my co-host. Thank you, Aaron.
Thank you for having me.
Thank you, Ruben.
Thank you.
Move here to our final slide. So I want to thank our sponsor, CoolStuffInc.com, our co-sponsor, CardHoarder.com, my co-host, Aaron Campbell and Ruben Bressler. You guys for watching and listening. I hope you support us at patreon.com/magicmics. Follow, like, tweet, favorite, share, subscribe to everything social that tells people we exist. Catch us online at twitch.tv at magicmics, on Twitter at magicmicscast, our Magic Mike subreddit, and like the Magic Mics page on Facebook. Or join us here next week, same time, same place, for another episode of Magic Mics. Good night, everybody.